A while back, I did a video called My Fountain Pen Collection Part 1. And today I thought it'd be really interesting to try to do Part 2. Um, I don't know if there's going to be a Part 3, but someday maybe. So I pulled out a drawer from the box, which I keep uninked pens and pens that aren't often used. There's certain pens that I always have inked, it seems. And even though these aren't inked, there's some really good pens that or pens that I quite like in here. And there's some pens that I don't like that much in here. And we're going to run through it and see what we have. It's just a little introduction, nothing too much. Now, there's nothing outrageously great in this collection of pens, or in my collection at all, really, in some ways. But I love my collection. It's always interesting, inexpensive pens, expensive pens. I love them all, and I find them interesting. So, first one I'm going to pull out is one of my favorite brands, and that's Lamy, and this is a Lamy All-Star, and it's a metal pen. It's very similar to the Lamy Safari. Lamy Safari is plastic. This is aluminum, I believe. Nice industrial clip. I like the fact that it has an ink window. This pen isn't inked at the moment, but it has been in rotation a long time, and I cleaned it up a while back and just set it aside for now. Yes, I do sometimes have too many inked pens. Yeah. Anyway, so the nib is very similar to the nib on, say, the Safari. Actually, it's exactly the same as the nib on a Safari. I believe this is medium. Can't remember. Usual triangular grip that people love or hate. My wife refers to Lamy as bossy, for whatever reason. Anyway, so that's the All-Star. And the next one is, of course, the Lamy Safari. I have it in this fun green color. Lamy comes out with these really great colors for the Safari and the All-Star too. Every year they have a special edition color, or two usually. So this is a special edition color from a few years back. I believe it's candy apple green. Fine nib on this one. Usual triangular grip. The grip actually, once you get used to it, I love it. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. It's very comfortable, I find. It kind of guides your hand. Other people just don't get used to it. Lamy is one of those companies where a lot of people are sort of for or against. So those are my other one, my Lamys. Next pen I'm going to show you is another Lamy, the Lamy Studio. Brushed metal, sort of a interesting propeller style clip. Very durable, nice snap to it. It's a pull cap. Actually, one of the things I like about Lamy are the pull caps. I've asked this question before. Are you a screw cap or a pull cap person? Personally, I like pull caps. Nice, almost a rubbery grip section. Easy on the fingers. It's not shaped like the other ones. It's round. The nib is very, very similar to the Safari, but it's a metal pen. Nice weight to it. Nice feel to it. The brushed steel, and I use that one quite a bit too. It feels a bit like when I'm writing with it. It tends to be a dry pen, I find, but I quite like it with certain inks. I like the fact that there's always like the Lamy has their branding on the side. For whatever reason, my camera is not focusing today. But anyway, next pen I'm going to show you is a vintage pen. This is a Moore 94A. Moore was an American company. Probably what some people would refer to as a second or third tier company, a small company, no longer exists. But you know what? This is the only Moore I have, but it's a nice pen. It's celluloid, green striped, gold plated clip. That's very strong. Nice size to it, actually. It's not a thin pen. For a vintage pen, there's a nice girth to it. It caps very nicely, so it turns into a very good size pen. Plastic feed. I think it's a gold plated clip. Gold-plated nib, fine, very nice writer, bit of springiness to it. Not a flex pen by any means, but there's a bit of bounce to it. Very nice to work with. Next pen I have is a Spanish pen. An Oxchrome, or Chrome, is a Spanish company. I think they still make ballpoint pens and things like that. That had some interesting pens. This is an Oxchrome 77. Has a sort of a fingernail style nib. This I have an Oxchrome 55 that I usually keep inked all the time, and this one, this isn't as nice as the 55. It's it feels lighter, feels a little cheaper. Well-made clip. The cap is very well made. Just feels lighter plastic. Very reminiscent of the Parker 45. At that time, Parker was a company that a lot of other brands, smaller brands, copied in their design features, and that is very similar to the Parker 45. Another great pen, and this is a Pilot, a vintage Pilot from back in the 60s, slip cap. I forget what this one is. Is it the Super 80? Anyway, very fine nib, very hard nib. Once again, that fingernail style nib that I quite like. And it has that interesting cutaway section you see in a lot of pens. I think it's reminiscent of, say, Mont Blanc at the time or something like that. Once again, I have a thing for black and gold pens. And also borrowing design features from the 45, the Parker 45. I do have a 45 here somewhere, and I'll set those aside and show you in comparison. The next pen is a Noodler Ahab. Noodler's Ahab. When I got this pen, how would I describe it? It was stinky. When you open up the package of a Noodler's pen, maybe, I don't know if all of them are this way, but this one, it was funky. It just had a smell to it that was, oh. But it's sort of it's better now. The smell has gone away. It has a big number 6 nib. It's supposedly a flex nib. And there is a bit of spring to that nib and a bit of flex. I wouldn't go pushing at it harder. It's nothing quite like a vintage flex nib, but it's a fun pen. I haven't had that one inked up for a while. It's something I used to use with, say, sheening inks or inks with a bit of sparkle to them. Mostly because it wasn't a pen I was too worried about being damaged by certain types of ink. Noodler makes some interesting products. I love their inks. Next pen I have is one of the great starter pens, and that's the Pilot Metropolitan. And I have this one inked up a lot. It's just out of circulation right at the moment. It's a pen I like to carry in my pocket. Really nice, classic design pen. It's metal, solid clip, really nice little pattern here. It's just a pretty pen. And Pilot, expensive, cheap. They make excellent nibs. Like, really some of the nicest nibs you're going to find, I think, anyway. But yeah, lovely pen. And you know what? It's inexpensive, and if you're thinking about getting a gift for somebody who's shown interest in fountain pens, you can't go wrong with a Pilot, the Pilot Metropolitan. There are several pens that are really good starter pens. The Pilot, of course, and the Lamy Safari are two of the great starter pens. So if you're thinking about somebody who might want a pen, the Safari or the Metropolitan are recommendations. TWSBI is also, oddly enough, there are no TWSBIs in this box because they're always inked. Let's see. This is a weird little pen. It's a Crest. I don't have a lot of information on Crest as a brand, but I think it's just a generic pen, very cheaply made, probably a student pen. I was just interested in it. This shape cap you see a lot on certain European inexpensive brands. Uh, but for all, it's a nice pen. Whoop, a little flimsy. I haven't had it ink. That's probably why I haven't used it. A little broken, but it's interesting. It's part of my collection. Nothing fancy. It's just a cheap, inexpensive pen. But one of those brands that I don't know much about, and I often try to figure out. And the cat's back. Oh dear. Actually, this one's not a fountain pen. It's a rollerball, and it's by uh, J. Herbon, the ink maker. They make a fountain pen too, but this is a nice little uh, cartridge pen. Um, it's a demonstrator, clear, really nice writer. I don't have anything against uh, ballpoints or roller balls, and if they're nicely made, they're great to write with. I still prefer fountain pens, but this is a nice little writer. Great little pen just to toss in your pocket. Inexpensive, really. Not worried about losing it. You know, clip cap. I like clip caps. The next two are both Coeco Sports and both missing their nibs. I still have the feed. I'll have to replace the nibs. Funny story about these two is, I got them on sale, like $20 each, I think, like that. And I use them as pocket pens. But recently I was trying to repair a couple vintage fountain pens with bad nibs. And I realized that the Iveco nib is actually, a number 5 nib, number 4. I'll have to figure that out again. Is actually similar to a lot of smaller vintage nibs. And I put it in the vintage pens, and they write really nicely now. The nibs that were in those pens were missing tines and bent and damaged and couldn't be used, and I hadn't seen any replacement nibs online, so I thought I'll just use this for now. It does the job. Great thing about Iveco is you can buy a new nib unit, and I'll do that sometime. Just replace those nibs. But at the same time, I'm keeping the bodies and all the gear with them. And because they're lovely little pocket pens, and it doesn't cost much to get a new nib for those. Next pen is a Retro 51. Yeah, I like that. What can I say about the 51? It's a very popular pen. I haven't had this inked up very often. I got it on a really good sale. I found it really inexpensively. I think the only problem I had with it doesn't post very well. It doesn't post securely. You can, but it always falls off. And, it's a nice size pen. I think it has a Schmidt nib in it, this one, which is one of the older nibs, I believe, with the Retro 51. And, it has a great orange color to it. Beautiful body on the pen. It's metal, very nice looking pen. I quite like the cap. I like this sort of industrial design to it. Yeah, the only problem I have with it is the fact that it doesn't post at all, but it's a shame, really. I would use it more often if it posted. I'd probably use it more often if it wasn't a screw cap, because it is actually one of those pens where it seems like you have to turn it like 4 times, and wow, that it's only a second, I know, but sometimes it's nice just to pull the cap off. What do we got in the next box? Okay, what actually is in the next box? Oh, this is an old body from the pen that I'm going to say it was a Wherever, a cheap American brand from the 30s and 40s that I bought. It was broken up, busted nib, busted feed, but I bought it as a test mule, so to speak. I used it to just experiment with, to get some skills on fixing up old pens. It was all scratched up, and I used it to practice polishing and repairing scratches, taking them out of the pen. So it's nice and shiny now. I even cut it one time with I cut a hole in it one time just with an X-Acto blade, and then practiced. I can't even tell where that is. I think it's right around here. I practiced filling the hole with crazy glue and polishing it, and just seeing how hard it was to fill a crack or a hole in a pen. I saw some videos online on how to do it, and then I used Anderson pen glass number 5 and number 1 and micro mesh, polished it, and got a nice gloss to it, covered up the scratch, and it worked really well. It's always nice to have an old junk pen around that you can practice on if you're wanting to tinker with, with vintage pens, fix them up. So that's a test mule. And it was an old wherever. This pen is actually a really lovely pen. It's a Centrepen 10016, I believe. Centrepen was a communist era Czechoslovakian brand. Really interesting pens. Like a lot of if you look at it, real nice chatoyance to this pen. It looks really nice, sort of like a plated clip. It's well made for a communist era pen. Centrepen, when the communists took over, they took all the small manufacturers and put them under one sort of government-controlled umbrella, Centrepen. And they made student pens and business pens and pens for the communist elite. So there's some, and I believe they sold pens in the West under a different brand, and I can't remember what it was. Barclay, I'll have to remember that. I'll do a review on that. But steel nib on it. It writes very nicely. I think it's a converter filler. Yeah, it's a converter filler. Converter is sealed on. It doesn't come off. That's very typical of the communist pens, where where the converter is glued on permanently. One thing that so with communist pens, are interesting. Quite a few of them have the threads on the converter where the barrel goes on up here at the front, like they're supposed to be. Certain Russian ones have the threads back here, and when the barrel goes on, the threads tighten it to the barrel back here. Very odd. And a lot of screws to get it on. Once again, a lot of screws. You can see that it says Centrepen there, 1006. But yeah, I like this pen a lot. It's a nice writer. When I have it inked up, it doesn't run dry. It seems to always start up nicely. Lovely little pen. This one is, I'm going to call it a VizPen Autovac. It's an Italian brand, designed along the lines of the Parker 51. It's actually a relatively nicely made pen. The clip is a little flimsy, a little flimsy there. Could have been, clip is also sort of reminiscent of the Parker clip, the arrow. And you pull it off, and it's a really beautiful little ink window. It's what they call a syringe-style filling system. This is glued on, and VizPen, I believe, is licensed, or there's a French brand called VisorPen. VizPen is somehow connected to it, so I think it's an Italian branch of VisorPen. But yeah, it's like, actually, it's a nice writer. It's a lovely looking pen. This one's in very good shape. You still see them around a bit on the internet. They're not that expensive. You don't have to spend more than, say, I wouldn't spend more than $40 on one of these. You can find them for less there. But it's a nice little pen. It's an interesting piece of history. Very attractive, yeah, so there's that. Actually, this is a visor pen. This is the French version of that pen. Once again, very much designed after the Parker 51, a hooded nib. Has an ink window. I always like ink windows. Slip cap. It's a nice pen. Works well. This is probably a student pen. I'm really actually quite interested in cheap student pens. There's some really interesting designs, and I like the ones that sort of mirrored the Parker 51, so I have a little collection of stuff like that. And I'm always keeping an eye out for something interesting in the student brand pens. Uh, so there's always interesting things. This is a black Esterbrook J, lever filler. Usually the more sought after are the brown or the reddish brown, the green, and the blue. I have a black. I don't use this that often. Um, it's in great shape. It works well. It has one of the lower grade nibs, starting with a number 1. If you're looking for a good Esterbrook pen, usually the better nibs start with a 9. Okay, so number 1s, they don't really have tipping on it. Number 2, I think, have a little tipping, but it's sort of just the nib bent back, like the steel bent back. I could be wrong. Number 9 has an iridium point and are generally really nice writers. And you can still find you can still find lots of Esterbrook nibs online. I haven't been lucky lately with them. They seem to have crept up in price. They've made millions and millions of nibs, so I haven't been able to find a nib that I really like for it. But I haven't looked lately too, so I'll have to do that. I'd like to get enough. Like there's 4 numbers. Each number represents something. The number 9 is what I want. Medium, fine is all represented by a number. So the usage is all represented by a number. There was a chart somewhere online that I'm aware of, and so I'd like to find a number 9 medium or a number 9 fine nib for my Esterbrook, because otherwise it's a lovely pen. This is another Pilot. There's another vintage Pilot. I like the nib on it. Really nice. A lot of spring to this nib, actually. Really nice writer. I haven't used it lately because I tend to have other Pilots on the go. One thing it's missing, there should be a little clutch ring in here just to help hold on the cap. Otherwise, it holds on fairly well. It's a little loose, but yeah, there should be a clutch ring. I don't have that, but otherwise, it's a perfectly good writer. Lovely looking pen. Yeah, that's a Pilot from the 60s. This is a pen. I did a video about this pen, and it's called Elite. Now, trying to find information about a pen called Elite online is almost impossible. You put in Elite, you'll get so many high-end, expensive brands like that, that have Elite in their name or whatever. But to find a pen that's actually branded as Elite, the Elite fountain pen, there's a lot of noise. But from what I understand, it's a student pen. But it has a nice little nib. Writes really nicely. Lovely looking pen. I have a thing for black and gold pens, and that's a nice gold pen, black and gold pen. And here's another Elite. I think this one is a little higher end. This one's a bit more student quality. Has an ink window. Sometimes the ink window is a giveaway whether it's a student pen or not, especially when the pen is made of plastic and seems a little inexpensive, because kids like to, if you're writing in school, you want to know how much ink you have. And actually, I shouldn't just say it's an indicator of a student pen. A lot of expensive pens have ink windows. I think all pens that have piston fillers or vacuum fillers should at least have an ink window. The Visconti Homo sapiens doesn't have an ink window, and you can never tell how much ink is in it. And now this is the classic Parker 45. This has a 14 karat gold nib, and it's in excellent shape. And I got a deal on this you wouldn't believe. I bought it in the same batch as this Wherever, and it was like, I think there was another pen. I can't even remember what the other pen was. Might have been another Wherever. And I bought them as junk pens. And the Wherevers were trash. But then when I looked at the Parker 45, I was like, I bought them. They were listed as junk. So I was looking at this, and I'm like, that isn't junk. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm going, and that's a gold nib. So I took it apart and looked at the nib, 585, 14K, beautiful medium writer, writes this wet line, smooth as could be, didn't need any work on it, hardly a scratch on it, and I got lucky. Sometimes when you're trolling the internet, you can find interesting things on eBay. Sometimes you get to get a piece of junk, but sometimes you get a piece of treasure. What else? This is a French what is this one? Evergood. Yeah, this is a French pen. Nice little chatoyancy to it. Don't use this one a lot. I need to actually, I need to do a little work on this pen. What bothers me is I don't have a converter that fits it, and I have to fill this empty ink cartridge. So I'll have to someday find a converter that fits there. I don't like using cartridges, even if I swap out the ink. I also have to do a little work where I have to take out the nib and feed and clean the feed up, I think, a bit. It sometimes skips, but otherwise, when I have it filled and I'm using it, it's a nice writer. It has a little bit of flex to the nib. It's not a flex nib, but there's a little bit of line variation in it. It writes quite nicely. Beautiful pen. So yeah, one of the reasons I don't use it that often is I don't have a converter for it. Beautiful chatoyancy, and it's a pull cap. So if I can find a converter that'll fit that, I'll be very happy, and and just reset the nib and feed maybe, just so it doesn't skip much. Probably just needs a little cleaning. But yeah, nice looking pen. Once again, it's a French brand. I don't know a lot about it. And I think that's pretty much it, except for this Quebeco box. I don't know what's in here. Oh, wait. There's a little, another ink, another Quebeco. This one's a Rollerball. And that's in there. And I sometimes ink that up, and I use it as a pocket pen. It's out of use at the moment. I keep the boxes. So anyway, that was part 2. Not much in that box, really, but collecting is always fun. Some people go, oh, you should only have expensive pens, or I think inexpensive pens, medium priced pens, pens of any price, they're lovely, they're interesting. If they have history and they're important to you, then great. I like using inks myself a lot, so I have I tend to have inexpensive pens because I love inks, and I like trying different ones, so it's nice to have different pens. The camera is shaking because Pencat is watching pigeons soaring past the window, and every time one comes by, she ducks down. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. And you know what? I would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel. I'm slowly working at building it up, and it's a lot of fun to do. It's great to get feedback from people. If you have any of these pens in your collection, I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite inexpensive pen? Let me know. Do you like pull caps? Do you like screw caps? What's your favorite color pen? What's your favorite color ink? All of those things are important. They're fun to find out. Sometimes if somebody recommends something that I'm unfamiliar with, I write it in a book and I look it up later and do some research. I'm always learning. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.